Introduction to captivity. The air was thick with despair, a palpable weight that pressed down on every soul trapped within the cold, metallic confines of their prison. The walls glistened with moisture, remnants of the harsh atmosphere outside, while an eerie hum from alien machinery filled the silence, a constant reminder that they were always being watched. Time had lost all meaning. There were no windows to mark day or night, only an endless cycle of gray that seeped into their very beings. Weeks? Months? It was impossible to tell how long they had been here. To their captors, they were nothing more than expendable resources, workers, slaves, mere tools in a grand scheme that had no regard for human life. The alien overlords had tossed them into cages like animals, shackling their wrists and ankles with heavy, unbreakable metal chains that clanked ominously with every slight movement. Each sound served as a reminder of their captivity, echoing through the dimly lit corridors like a funeral dirge for their lost freedom. In one corner of the cell, he sat, silent and still. The others around him were broken spirits, resigned to their fate. They didn't know his name, nor did the aliens care to learn it. To them, he was just another prisoner, another broken soul waiting for death or deliverance. But he wasn't broken, not yet. The aliens had taken everything from him, his home, his people, his freedom. He had watched helplessly as they razed cities to the ground, obliterating any trace of resistance with weapons beyond human comprehension. Those who survived were either killed or captured. He was one of the unfortunate ones. The guards were grotesque figures, tall and elongated with sharp, glassy eyes that seemed to pierce through flesh to read souls. They possessed strength akin to machines but harbored a cruelty that made them feel more like predators than sentinels. Though they rarely spoke directly to the humans, when they did, it was always laced with disdain and mockery. One particular guard often lingered near his cell, a smug creature that seemed to take pleasure in taunting them. It would click and hiss in its alien tongue, but thanks to a translator embedded in his arm, he understood every derisive word. Pathetic weaklings. How did your species ever think it could survive against us? You're nothing but vermin crawling in dirt. He remained stoic in response, refusing to give this creature the satisfaction it craved. Inside him, however, rage simmered like molten lava ready to erupt. They didn't know him. They didn't understand humanity, not really. The alien slid closer now, pressing its face against the bars of his cell with an unsettling grin. Look at you, it sneered, sitting there hoping for a miracle. There's no escape for you, no rescue. No one is coming for you. You're ours now until we decide to end it. Still, he stayed silent as laughter erupted from its throat, a high-pitched sound that grated against his nerves like nails on a chalkboard. You humans are always so stubborn and proud, it mocked. It's amusing, really. How long before you beg? Before you cry out for mercy like all the rest? But he wouldn't respond, not now or ever. He wouldn't give this creature any form of victory over him. Eventually, boredom drove the alien away as it moved on to mock another prisoner. Left alone once more with his thoughts, he noticed how fear had robbed others of their voices. They glanced at him occasionally, but dared not speak up. He understood their despair, but couldn't share in it, not yet. He flexed his fingers beneath the weight of his chains as he stared at his shackled wrists, the metal cold against his skin, but not unyielding enough to break his spirit. Escape felt impossible. This facility was locked down tighter than any fortress he could imagine. Yet even in this hopelessness, thoughts raced through his mind like wildfire. Each day felt like an endless loop, a cycle of suffering that seemed unbreakable as they were forced into grueling labor in dark mines beneath the facility. The aliens believed humans were weak, malnourished, and exhausted, but they didn't know what lay hidden beneath their skin: resilience and an indomitable will. As he dug into rock with dull tools, hands blistered from toil, he kept his eyes forward while mentally mapping out every detail around him. The guards' movements and routines became predictable patterns he learned to exploit quietly. He couldn't let go. He wouldn't allow himself to be broken by these creatures who thought themselves superior simply because they wielded greater technology and strength. Each day brought new opportunities hidden within their arrogance, a flaw waiting to be discovered. Night after night, when they returned to their cells, exhausted bodies lying on cold floors, the other prisoners barely moved or spoke, while despair clung tightly around them like a shroud. But not him. His mind never rested. He began testing limits during those quiet moments when guards weren't looking, pulling slightly harder on chains or moving quicker than allowed, to feel where weaknesses lay within restraints designed to keep them docile. Patience became his ally as he studied everything. The technology used against them had vulnerabilities too. It was merely a matter of time before he found a way through them. The other prisoners began noticing him. Some even drew comfort from watching how he observed everything around him with keen eyes that refused to surrender hope. They were waiting for something, anything, to change. He knew he couldn't do this alone if there was ever going to be a chance at escape. But they were too afraid, too broken yet. Days turned into weeks filled with pain and suffering, but also learning opportunities as cracks formed within alien control systems became visible each passing day. A sign that perhaps freedom wasn't as far-fetched as it seemed. He felt anger simmering beneath layers of despair. Each lash from guards only fueled determination further inside him, a fire refusing extinguishment despite overwhelming odds stacked against them all. Then came that fateful day when everything shifted, a moment when hope ignited amidst despair. One weak man stumbled under exhaustion during labor, causing chaos among ranks as guards rushed over without thinking twice about consequences. And so began an unbelievable journey towards freedom. A spark igniting rebellion deep within hearts once thought lost forever, the protagonist's resolve. The chaos of the rebellion echoed through the dark, damp corridors of the alien facility. The air was thick with adrenaline, fear, and a newfound sense of purpose. As the dust began to settle from the initial skirmish, the protagonist stood amidst the wreckage of what had once been a symbol of their oppression. The fallen guards lay scattered across the ground, their grotesque forms a testament to the unexpected ferocity of human resistance. He took a moment to catch his breath, his chest heaving as he surveyed the faces of his fellow prisoners. They were battered and bruised, but for the first time since their capture, there was light in their eyes, a flicker of hope that had long been extinguished. The realization that they could fight back surged through him like electricity. This was not just a battle, it was a declaration of their humanity, the weight of loss. But even amid this burgeoning hope, he felt the weight of loss pressing down on him. Memories flooded back, images of his family, his wife's laughter, his children's innocent smiles. They were gone now, victims of an invasion that had ripped through Earth like a storm. He had fought to protect them, but in the end, he had failed. The guilt gnawed at him. It was a constant reminder that every moment spent in this alien prison was another moment stolen from them. Yet this pain fueled his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for them, for all those who had suffered at the hands of these alien overlords. He clenched his fists around the makeshift weapon he had taken from a fallen guard, a heavy baton that felt surprisingly comforting in his grip. It was more than just a tool for defense. It was a symbol of defiance against those who had stripped him of everything he held dear. A plan takes shape. As he steadied himself, he began to formulate a plan in his mind. They couldn't linger in the tunnels forever. Reinforcements would come soon enough. They needed to move quickly and decisively if they were to seize this moment of opportunity. The facility was vast, filled with corridors and chambers that held both danger and potential escape routes. "Listen up," he called out, his voice cutting through the murmur of confusion among the prisoners. "We have a chance here, a chance to break free, but we need to stick together and move fast." The others turned to him, uncertainty etched on their faces. They had been beaten down for so long that trust didn't come easily. But something about his tone resonated with them. Perhaps it was the fire in his eyes or the conviction in his words. "We can't go back," he continued, pacing before them as adrenaline coursed through his veins. "We've shown them that we're not helpless. We can fight, but we need a plan." He glanced around at the faces. Some were young men who had barely seen life outside these walls, while others were older, weathered by years of oppression. Yet all shared one thing, a desire for freedom. Gathering allies. "Who here knows anything about this facility?" he asked, scanning their faces for any sign of knowledge or experience. A few hands hesitantly rose among them. "I worked in maintenance before they captured us," said a tall man with dark hair and weary eyes. "I know some of the layouts and access points." "Good," he replied, feeling a surge of hope at this revelation. What can you tell us? There are service tunnels that run beneath most sections of this facility, the man explained. They're not heavily guarded because they're meant for repairs and maintenance. Then we can use those tunnels to our advantage, he said, excitement building in his chest. If we can navigate through them without drawing attention, we might find an exit. Another prisoner chimed in, a woman with fierce determination etched on her face. But we need weapons. We can't go out there. A glimmer of hope. As more guards fell around them and shouts filled the air like thunderclaps echoing off metal walls. A realization dawned upon him. This wasn't just about escape anymore. It was about reclaiming what had been lost, their dignity as humans fighting back against tyranny. With each passing moment, confidence grew among them. They were no longer prisoners, they were warriors, and together they would carve their path toward freedom no matter what lay ahead. But even amid victory's taste lingering on their lips, a nagging thought remained. How far could they push? Would this rebellion lead them closer to freedom or deeper into despair? He pushed those thoughts aside as they continued forward, determined to seize every opportunity presented before them while keeping one goal firmly in mind: escape at all costs. The battle raged on around him, chaos swirling like a tempest, but within that storm lay hope, a flicker igniting brighter with each fallen guard, reminding him that humanity wasn't done yet, not by a long shot, the spark of rebellion. The air was electric with the aftermath of their unexpected victory. The echoes of battle still reverberated through the dimly lit tunnels, a cacophony of clattering chains, heavy breaths, and the occasional groan of fallen guards. For the first time since their capture, the prisoners felt a surge of hope coursing through their veins, a feeling that had long been extinguished by despair and oppression. He stood at the forefront, adrenaline still pumping through him as he surveyed the scene. The chaos had transformed into a rallying point. The prisoners were no longer just a collection of broken souls. They were a united force, emboldened by the realization that they could fight back against their alien captors. The taste of victory was bitter yet sweet, a reminder that they were not as powerless as they had been led to believe. A moment of reflection. As he caught his breath, he glanced around at his fellow prisoners. Some were nursing wounds, while others were still panting from exertion. Yet all shared one thing in common, a newfound determination that shone in their eyes. They were battered and bruised, but they stood taller now, shoulders squared against the weight of their chains. In this moment of reflection, he thought back to the journey that had brought them here, the endless days spent in darkness, the mocking laughter of their captors, and the crushing despair that had threatened to consume them. But now they had turned the tide. They had shown the aliens that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Listen up," he shouted, his voice cutting through the haze of adrenaline and confusion. "We can't stop now. This is just the beginning." The prisoners turned to him, their faces a mix of exhaustion and eagerness. They needed direction, someone to lead them through this chaos and into whatever lay beyond. Formulating a plan. "First," he continued, "we need to regroup and arm ourselves properly. We can't rely on makeshift weapons forever." He gestured toward the fallen guards scattered across the floor. "Take what you can find: blasters, armor, anything that will help us fight." The prisoners sprang into action, riffling through the debris for weapons and supplies. He joined them, his heart racing with anticipation as he picked up an alien blaster, a sleek weapon that felt foreign yet powerful in his hands. It was heavier than he expected but balanced well. It would serve him well in whatever battles lay ahead. As they armed themselves, he felt a sense of camaraderie building among them, a bond forged in shared struggle and newfound hope. They were no longer just individuals, they were part of something greater, a rebellion against their oppressors. "Now," he said once everyone had gathered again, "we need to find a way out of this facility before reinforcements arrive." He paused for emphasis. "We have to move quickly and quietly." One of the prisoners spoke up, a wiry man with sharp features and an intensity in his eyes. "I know a way through some service tunnels," he said breathlessly. "They lead deeper into the facility, but could take us closer to an exit." "Good," he replied, nodding firmly. "Lead the way." Navigating through darkness. With their newfound weapons in hand and determination ignited within them, they followed the wiry man through twisting corridors and darkened passageways. The atmosphere was thick with tension, Every sound seemed amplified as they moved cautiously through the facility's underbelly. The walls closed in around them, cold and metallic, yet there was a sense of purpose that propelled them forward. They navigated past flickering lights and humming machinery, always alert for any sign of guards or surveillance drones. As they turned another corner, they stumbled upon an intersection filled with shadows, an area where multiple tunnels converged into one larger passageway. He gestured for everyone to halt as he strained his ears to listen for any approaching footsteps. "Stay quiet," he whispered urgently. They waited in silence, hearts pounding in unison as they listened intently for any signs of danger. After what felt like an eternity, he finally heard it, the distant sound of alien voices echoing from one of the adjoining corridors. "They're coming," someone hissed in panic. "Back," he commanded softly but firmly. They retreated into the shadows just as two alien guards rounded the corner, tall figures with elongated limbs and sharp features gliding effortlessly through the darkness. The guards spoke in their guttural language, oblivious to the humans hiding just out of sight. "Pathetic humans," one guard sneered contemptuously. "They think they can escape. They'll never make it past us." He clenched his fists tightly around his blaster as anger surged within him at their arrogance. The aliens believed themselves invincible. They had no idea how close humanity was to breaking free from their chains. Once the guards passed without incident, he motioned for everyone to follow him again, their hearts still racing but fueled by determination rather than fear. The heartbeat of rebellion. As they pressed deeper into the facility's labyrinthine structure, he couldn't shake off a feeling that something monumental was brewing within them, a heartbeat echoing louder with every step they took toward freedom. They reached another junction where several paths branched out before them. Some led further into darkness, while others appeared to ascend toward brighter lights above. "This way," shouted one prisoner who had been observing closely alongside him, the wiry man pointing toward a narrow passageway leading upward. They followed him eagerly, their senses heightened by adrenaline as they climbed through tight spaces filled with flickering lights and strange machinery humming ominously around them. Suddenly, they emerged into an open chamber bathed in harsh fluorescent light, a stark contrast from the shadows below, and found themselves face to face with more guards stationed at various points throughout the room. "Get down," he shouted instinctively as everyone ducked behind crates, stacked haphazardly against one wall. A desperate gamble. The guards hadn't noticed them yet. They were too busy communicating amongst themselves about recent events. The chaos caused by humanity's uprising echoing throughout every corridor in this facility. "Now's our chance," he whispered urgently to his companions as adrenaline surged once more through his veins, this time mixed with fear but also excitement at what lay ahead. He raised his blaster slowly, his heart pounding loudly in his chest, and took aim at one guard standing closest to him while signaling for others to prepare themselves for action. With a deep breath filled with resolve, he squeezed the trigger and watched as energy surged forth from his weapon, striking true against its target. The guard crumpled instantly under impact, a look of shock etched across its grotesque features before it fell lifelessly onto cold metal flooring below. The momentary silence shattered like glass as panic erupted among remaining guards who scrambled toward cover while shouting orders into their communication devices. "Fight," he yelled fiercely. "Now is our moment." The other prisoners sprang into action alongside him, firing blasters wildly while charging forward, fueled by adrenaline coursing through their veins like wildfire. The battle for freedom. Chaos erupted within moments, the air filled with blaster fire and shouts echoing throughout this chamber as humans fought back fiercely against those who had oppressed them for far too long. He ducked behind cover, a crate shielding him from incoming fire while returning shots toward advancing aliens who sought revenge upon these once helpless prisoners. Every shot fired felt like liberation, a release from years spent shackled beneath tyranny's weight. Each fallen guard only served to embolden those still fighting beside him. They were no longer afraid. They were warriors reclaiming what had been stolen. He could see it in their eyes now, the fire ignited deep within each soul, burning brightly against darkness surrounding them. They'd fought not just for survival, but also for dignity, for humanity itself. The battle raged on fiercely. Blaster bolts illuminated shadows dancing across walls, while cries echoed throughout this chamber filled with chaos. But amidst all this turmoil lay hope, a flicker shining brighter than ever before. As more guards fell beneath human resolve, alien superiority began crumbling under pressure. The tide was turning. He fought on relentlessly, each movement fueled by rage against those who sought control over lives once full of promise. In this moment, it became clear. Freedom wasn't merely an abstract concept anymore. It was tangible. It was real. And together, they would seize it. Together, they would break free. With every pulse-pounding beat echoing within chambers filled with chaos, he knew deep down that this wasn't just about escaping captivity. It was about reclaiming identity, reclaiming existence itself. As blaster fire continued ringing out like thunderous applause reverberating throughout halls filled with echoes, he felt invincible alongside those fighting beside him, united by shared purpose. They wouldn't stop until every last alien stood defeated, until every last chain lay shattered upon ground beneath feet. This was only beginning. The spark ignited would soon become an inferno, consuming all obstacles standing between humanity and freedom. And so, they fought on together, forging paths toward liberation, fueled by belief, unwavering courage, unyielding spirit, ready to face whatever challenges awaited beyond these walls. The fight for freedom. The adrenaline coursed through his veins as he stood amidst the chaos, the echoes of battle still reverberating in the air. The prisoners had tasted victory, however fleeting, and it ignited a fire within them that could not be snuffed out. They were no longer just victims, they were warriors, united in their fight against their alien captors. "Move! We need to get to the control room," he shouted, his voice cutting through the din of chaos. The urgency in his tone spurred the others into action. They had to capitalize on this moment before it slipped away. The wiry man who had led them through the tunnel stepped forward, pointing toward a darkened corridor that branched off from the main chamber. "This way, the control room is just ahead. If we can disable their systems, we might gain an advantage." With weapons drawn and hearts pounding, they surged forward into the corridor. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Every shadow felt like a lurking threat. But there was no turning back now. The taste of freedom was too close, too intoxicating to abandon. A newfound strength. As they moved deeper into the facility, he felt a change in the air. A shift that signaled their resolve had solidified into something formidable. They were no longer just a group of broken individuals. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Stay alert," he cautioned as they approached a large door marked with alien symbols and glowing lights. "We don't know what's waiting for us on the other side." The wiry man stepped forward, examining the controls beside the door. "I can override this," he said, fingers flying over the buttons as he worked quickly to bypass the security protocols. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of distant footsteps. The guards were regrouping, and time was running out. "Faster," he urged, glancing back nervously. With a final beep, the door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit control room filled with screens displaying various feeds from around the facility. The walls were lined with consoles and blinking lights, each one a testament to the advanced technology that had kept them imprisoned for so long. "Get to those consoles," he commanded. "We need to shut down their security systems." Turning the tide. As they spread out across the room, fingers flying over buttons and screens, he felt the surge of hope wash over him. This was their chance to turn the tide, to seize control of their fate and dismantle the very systems that had oppressed them for so long. He moved to one of the consoles, scanning the interface for any signs of weakness. The alien technology was complex but not impenetrable. He could feel his mind racing as he tried to decipher it all. "Come on," he muttered under his breath as he pressed buttons at random, hoping for some semblance of success. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, a deafening sound that sent shockwaves through him. "What did you do?" someone shouted in panic. "I don't know," he replied frantically as lights flashed red around them. "But we need to hurry." The wiry man continued working furiously at another console, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought against time. "I'm trying to disable their security systems. Just hold on." As they worked diligently amidst rising chaos, he could feel an energy building within him, a sense of purpose that propelled him forward despite fear gnawing at his insides. They were fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting for their humanity. The alien response. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed outside the control room. Guards were approaching fast. He exchanged glances with his fellow prisoners. They knew what was coming. "Prepare yourselves," he shouted as they took up defensive positions around the entrance. The door burst open and several guards stormed in, blasters raised and ready to fire. Without hesitation, he fired first, aiming carefully at one of them and feeling satisfaction wash over him as it fell under his shot. "Fight!" he yelled as chaos erupted once more. The prisoners rallied behind him, driven by desperation and fury as they fought back against their oppressors. Blaster fire lit up the room like fireworks as humans clashed against aliens, every strike fueled by years of suffering and oppression. The guards had underestimated them once again. This time they were not going down without a fight. A desperate struggle. The battle raged on fiercely as blaster bolts ricocheted off walls and bodies collided in desperate struggle. He ducked behind cover, a console shielding him from incoming fire, as he reloaded his weapon with shaking hands. "Keep pushing forward," he shouted over the din of battle. "We can't let them regroup." With renewed determination coursing through him, he charged forward again, firing at anything that moved while shouting encouragements to his fellow prisoners who fought valiantly beside him. One guard fell beneath his aim while another stumbled back under fire from another prisoner, each victory igniting hope within their ranks. But even amid this chaos, doubt crept into his mind. Would this rebellion be enough? Could they truly break free from this nightmare? A moment of clarity. In that moment of uncertainty, something shifted within him, a clarity that cut through fear like a knife. They had come too far to turn back now. Failure was not an option. He glanced around at his fellow prisoners, some battered but unbroken, fighting fiercely against those who sought to extinguish their flame. They had already proven themselves capable of defiance. Now it was time to show these aliens what humanity was truly made of. With renewed vigor surging through him like wildfire, he pressed onward into battle, each step fueled by hope, each shot fired filled with purpose. As more guards fell around them, their numbers dwindling, the tide began to turn. He could see it in their eyes, the fear that had once dominated now replaced by uncertainty. They were losing control, seizing victory. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the chamber as another group of prisoners burst in from an adjoining corridor, fresh reinforcements joining their ranks. "Keep fighting," one shouted breathlessly as they charged into battle alongside those already engaged in combat. The combined strength surged through them all, a wave of determination washing away any lingering doubts. Together, they'd fought harder than ever before, pushing back against alien forces until finally, the last guard fell beneath their combined might. Silence enveloped the room, a heavy stillness settling like dust after a storm, but it wasn't over yet. They had won this battle, but there were still more challenges ahead. He looked around at his fellow prisoners, briefless but alive, each face reflecting triumph mixed with exhaustion. "We did it," someone exclaimed incredulously, disbelief mingling with joy. But even amidst celebration, a sense of urgency lingered in the air. They needed to move quickly before reinforcements arrived at the path forward. "Now we need to find our way out," he shouted decisively as adrenaline surged through him once more. They quickly gathered weapons and supplies from fallen guards before heading toward another exit, their path illuminated by flickering lights overhead. As they moved deeper into unfamiliar territory, their hearts raced with anticipation mixed with fear. They knew freedom lay ahead, but so did danger. Every corner turn felt like stepping closer toward liberation while simultaneously facing potential peril lurking just beyond sight. They navigated through narrow hallways filled with strange machinery until finally, they reached an exit leading outside into blinding daylight. He paused briefly at threshold, taking in fresh air filled with scents long forgotten, a reminder that life existed beyond these walls. "Let's go," someone urged from behind, and without hesitation, they surged forward together into freedom. A new dawn. As they stepped outside, the sun blazed overhead, illuminating everything around them. It felt surreal after being trapped in darkness for so long. But there was no time for celebration yet. They needed to put distance between themselves and this facility before reinforcements arrived. They ran together across open ground, hearts pounding wildly as adrenaline propelled them forward toward an uncertain future filled with possibility. Behind them, the sounds of chaos faded slowly, but hope surged within him stronger than ever before. They had fought back against tyranny, they had proven themselves capable of defiance, and now nothing could hold them down any longer. Together, they would reclaim what was lost, rebuild what had been shattered, and forge a new path toward freedom. And so, with every step taken toward horizons stretching endlessly before them, they knew deep down, this wasn't just an escape, it was a beginning. A new dawn awaited on the other side, filled with promised resilience, and above all else, hope for humanity's future reborn from ashes left behind by oppression.